playoff teams have been announced, and to say the least, I'm very surprised. Especially when looking at it from the beginning of the season, I don't think I would have ever seen a non-Power 5 team be featured in this, as well as Michigan. I mean, the surprise they've been, it's been crazy, right, for Coach Harbaugh, and he's proved that that extension was worth it. But without further ado, I mean, the matchups we've got are going to be pretty exciting. We got number one Alabama going up against the first non-Power 5 team, as I said earlier, to make a CFP semifinal game in the Cincinnati Bearcats of the American Athletic Conference. And I think this should be a fun game. I mean, you got Bryce Young, who in that offense, who just dropped 41 on the best defense in the nation, going up against Desmond Ritter in this hungry Cincinnati team, ready to prove the world wrong. They've got a lot of people on their backs, you know. They're trying to prove that teams outside the Power Five deserve to be in this place, and that it can be done. You don't have to have a huge program to be able to get to this spot. And they've proven a lot of people wrong already, and I think they're just hungry to do more. Saying that, I mean, I still think that Nick Saban is not going to let this one slip away from him at all. I think Bama's going to be able to get off to a fast and early start, and Cincinnati just won't be able to keep up with the pace Bama plays with. And I think that game will easily be decided by at least two possessions.
Starting off with Alabama, they after that win against Georgia, they pretty much secured their spot in the CFP. But number one, to me, that's a little high. They lost to A&M. They're a one-loss team, and you're putting them above a few teams that I think maybe deserve it a bit more, like Michigan and Georgia, who have been completely dominant. Um, but I can see where they're coming from. I mean, Bryce Young, this team is a classic Alabama dominant, except for that one loss against A&M, and that wasn't even that bad. It was just 3 points, close game. But I mean, Bryce Young's been sensational. You have 1,000-yard rusher and Robinson just barely, and then you have a imposing group of receivers. Even though you lose Mechie to ACL, you still have Jameson Williams, and I think everyone else can pick up the slack, obviously. And then the defense is an exhibit defense. It's good. It's going to be good always. My favorite team in this playoff. I'm rooting for these guys, Cincinnati. Um, this is this is after a few years of questionable. Should they have gone in? Should they have not? They kind of forced everyone's hand with great play. I mean, they beat Notre Dame and then they beat Houston. So those are their two quality wins. So yeah, and Desmond Ritter has been playing fantastic. I expect to see him go in the first round.
Yeah, I agree that this is going to be about whether Desmond Ritter can get the job done. This Alabama defense is good, and we already know that their offense is going to score consistently with the Cincinnati defense that's good but not great. The real question is whether the Cincinnati offense can keep up with them. They have played well throughout the year, and they can win games. And the defense is good, don't get me wrong, but the Alabama offense is very overpowering. Can Cincinnati keep up? That's the question. And if they want to win, that is exactly what they're going to have to do in order to pull off this upset. Otherwise, I think it's Bama big.
Then move on to our next game, which I think should be a lot more competitive against the Big Ten champs Michigan, going up against what was the number one team for a while, Georgia. I mean, Georgia has been quite the story, you know, number one defense and all. Again, going up against that Michigan team who, outside of that loss against MSU, has looked really solid. I mean, John Harbaugh's got his guys together, and they all seem to be clicking perfectly. You know, they won that conference championship game by 39 against Iowa, and they just look like unstoppable right now. That being said, that Georgia team is by far very angry about that result against Alabama. I mean, they weren't able to get into the game, and that really hurt them. They lost by 17. That defense allowed 41 points, and they're the number one defense in the nation. I still think they are. Um, but and I think they're going to prove that in that game against Michigan. I think they're going to give that Hassan Haskins running back that his running game a tough time. You're going to see similar to performance as he did against Iowa, and I think that Georgia defense is just ready to come back and rematch Bama, and they want them in the championship. And when it gets to that point, I think Bama's just gonna say nope, not again. We're not gonna fall back. We played you guys once already, and we're not gonna let you guys get the best of us this time either. And I think Nick Saban and Bama's eventually just gonna take the horse by its reins and go back to back here for the national championship in 2022.
Domination. That win against Ohio State and against Iowa, that is dominate. That's the definition of domination right there. Um, the defense is really good. You have maybe a first round pick in Hutchins, number one overall pick in Hutchinson. That defense is smothering, and then you have two really good running backs in Haskins and Corum. So yeah, I think Michigan they're well rounded. They have a good defense, complementary offense. So they're similar to the number three team, Georgia. I would say they're pretty similar. I think Michigan might have a little slight edge on offensive side, and Georgia maybe slight edge on defensive side. But Georgia, yeah, they're number three. That's probably where I would put them as well because they lost it against Alabama. If not, then maybe you know. Well, if they hadn't lost it, that would be number one consensus easily. That defense has been good. The offense has been good. They've just been dominating. But that Alabama game, you just saw this the offense just could not start, and then the defense just got obliterated. Um,
What is surprising here is that Georgia is favored in a game after they've been dominated by Alabama. Michigan can look at the tape, they can figure out what Alabama did and potentially copy it to win this game. I don't think Georgia has enough time to fix all the problems that they had against Alabama. They have a complementary offense at Michigan, they have a good defense, a really good defense, and Georgia might have had the same thing. They might have had a really good defense and a really good offense, but their offense hasn't looked the same. I think Michigan wins this game. I think it's close. But I think Michigan wins this game plainly because they have the momentum. They are not, haven't been in this situation and they have everything to prove in this big game.